I remember the first sound that pulled me out of the darkness. It wasn't the beeping machines, it wasn't the hum of the ventilator. It was a voice I knew better than my own heartbeat. My husband, Derek. His breath was close to my ear, steady, controlled, almost rehearsed. End her life support today. Those 6 words sliced through the fog in my mind like a blade. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or dying. But then I realized something that changed everything. I could hear him, I could understand him, but I couldn't move. Not a twitch, not a finger, not even my eyelids. The world was pitch black behind my eyes, but every word around me was crystal clear. I was trapped inside my own body. Before I take you deeper into the nightmare that followed, do me a favor. Hit that like button and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because trust me, this story takes a turn you will not see coming. My name is Alicia Moore. I'm 40 years old, a high school English teacher from Atlanta, Georgia, and 3 weeks ago, I woke up inside my worst fear, locked in my own body, listening to the man I married discuss the best way to let me die. I didn't even know what had happened to me yet. I didn't know I was in the ICU. I didn't know I'd been unconscious for 4 days. I barely remembered the crash. All I knew was that I could hear, and that my husband didn't sound like a grieving man. He sounded like a man in a hurry. The doctors already said there's no real brain activity, Derek whispered, his voice low but steady. There's no point keeping her here like this. There was a pause, and then I heard another voice, soft, feminine, too close. Then do it, she whispered back. Lauren, his assistant, his lover. Her presence hit me harder than the pain in my body. Lauren was here, standing beside my hospital bed, whispering with my husband about the moment my life would end. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up. I wanted to rip the tubes from my body and prove them wrong, but I lay still, silent. A corpse they believed could not hear them. A moment later, footsteps echoed, and Derek's voice shifted instantly, coated in fake grief. Doctor, he said, any updates? Then another voice answered, calm, clinical, unaware that I was fully conscious. No change. She's unresponsive. We'll reassess tomorrow. Unresponsive, unaware, gone. That's what they all thought. And Derek leaned into that lie like it was the best news he'd ever received. When the doctor left, Derek's voice dropped again. We should finish this today, he murmured. Dragging it out isn't right, Lauren sighed, as if bored. Just sign the papers. The sooner you do, the sooner we can move on. Move on. 2 words that made my blood turn cold. How long had they been planning this? How long had my death been the solution to their future? I tried again to move. Anything. A finger. A breath. A blink. Nothing responded. I was buried alive inside myself, listening to the 2 people who should never have been standing together. One who vowed to love me. One who vowed she wasn't interested in him standing at my bedside plotting my exit. The machines beeped steadily beside me, the only proof I was still alive. I tried to focus on the sound of my heart monitor, steady and strong. I wasn't dying. I wasn't gone. I was here. And I needed someone, anyone, to notice. Derek kissed my forehead. The gesture would have been comforting once. Now it made my stomach twist in horror. Goodbye, baby, he whispered. I'll talk to the doctor soon. There was no tremble in his voice, no grief, just relief. He left with Lauren at his side, and the door closed behind them. Darkness swallowed me again, but this time it wasn't from injury, it was from terror. I replayed every word in my mind. End her life support today, not tomorrow, not later, today. He was ready to kill me before dinner. I didn't know why. I didn't know how I ended up here. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I had to survive. I had to find a way to communicate, to warn someone, to fight back. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It was impossible to tell time when trapped inside a silent prison of flesh. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped. Conversations drifted, but none of them noticed me. Not until a young nurse with a soft voice and shoes that squeaked just a little entered my room. Her name tag clicked as she worked. Maria. She checked my vitals, adjusted my tubes, cleaned the corner of my mouth. And then something happened. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't know I could still cry, but my body released that single drop like it was the last plea I had left. Maria froze. She leaned close. Very close. "Alicia," she whispered, "can you hear me?" My heart pounded so hard I thought the monitor might scream. "Yes, yes, I can hear you. Please, please don't leave." She touched the corner of my eye again. There were fresh tears. She wasn't imagining it, and in that instant, hope flickered for the first time since waking up. Because someone finally saw me. Someone finally noticed I was still here. Still fighting. And that tiny moment, Maria's gasp. Her widening eyes became the spark that would save my life. Before the day ended, Maria would question everything she'd been told. She would listen more closely. She would watch me. And soon, she would be the first person to realize the truth that Derek never expected. I wasn't gone. I wasn't silent. And I had heard every word that would eventually destroy him. I wasn't always the woman lying helpless in a hospital bed, trapped in silence while the man I married plotted the end of my life. Before everything shattered, my world looked almost perfect from the outside. My name is Alicia Moore, 40 years old, born and raised in Atlanta. I taught American literature at a public high school, a job I loved more than anything. I woke up every morning excited to teach kids how to find their voice through stories, how to see themselves in words written decades or centuries before they were born. Back then, I thought my own life was a story that was finally settling into a peaceful chapter. I had a husband, Derek Moore, who everyone described as charming, responsible, ambitious. He worked in finance, wore clean suits even on weekends, and always knew exactly what to say when my sister teased him or my students begged him to tell embarrassing stories about me. My friends used to tell me, "Alicia, you lucked out. That man loves you." And I believed them. For years, I believed them. Derek and I had been married for 12 years. We weren't perfect, but we were solid, or at least that's what I thought. We owned a modest but cozy home on a quiet street lined with oak trees. Saturday mornings meant pancakes and jazz. Sunday nights meant takeout and movie marathons. We talked about taking a trip to Italy for our anniversary, about adopting a dog, about maybe trying for a baby even though we were getting older. It all felt stable, ordinary in a comforting way. If you had told me that the same man who kissed my forehead every morning before work would one day stand beside my hospital bed and quietly request my death, I would have laughed. Spoken it into the universe as if it were the most impossible thing imaginable. Because back then, Derek was still the man who brushed my hair off my shoulder, who brought flowers just because, who held me when I cried after a rough day at school. Or at least he played that part well. But looking back, the cracks had started long before the crash. Tiny ones at first, barely visible. The kind you ignore because you want the picture to stay pretty. Derek started working later. Quarter-end audits, he said. Then came the sudden weekend conferences, the phone he kept face down, the messages he read and quickly cleared, the way he showered the moment he came home, not warm, affectionate showers, but scrub-sharp, anxious ones. I tried not to overthink it. I told myself every marriage had seasons. Every couple went through phases where one person drifted a little, only to drift back. I had no proof that anything was wrong, but my body knew. My gut trembled with a quiet warning I pushed down again and again. The first real sign was the fundraiser event at my school. Derek promised to come. He knew how much it meant to me. I waited at the entrance, smiling at parents, waving at students, glancing at my phone every few minutes. He texted an hour after the event started. "Caught up at work. Sorry, love you." But when I cleaned up after the event ended, one of the parents, a woman who worked downtown, mentioned she saw Derek earlier that evening. "He was at that new bar on Peachtree," she said casually. "Looked like he was on a date or a business meeting or something." My stomach dropped so hard I nearly dropped the stack of chairs I was carrying. I didn't confront him immediately. I rehearsed what I might say, but couldn't bring myself to say it. Instead, I waited, observed. And that's when I began noticing the changes more clearly. He was colder, quicker to frustration. He flinched when I touched him, almost as if my hands burned. I found a hair tie in his car, blonde, small, not mine. I found a receipt for a dinner for two at a restaurant we used to love but hadn't visited in months. Each sign was a puzzle piece I didn't want to assemble, but the picture was forming whether I was ready or not. I tried to talk to him one night over dinner. "Are you happy?" I asked. He didn't look up from his plate. "Alicia, I'm tired. It's been a long day. Can we not do this?" "Do what?" I wanted to scream. "Communicate? Be honest? Tell me why you feel 100 miles away sitting 3 feet from me." But I swallowed it, like I always did. Weeks passed. The tension grew. I cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear me. I stayed later at school just to avoid the cold silence of our living room, and then came Lauren. I didn't know her name at first. I just knew that whoever she was, she had Derek's attention in ways I hadn't seen in years. When I finally learned her name, when I found their messages, their photos, everything in me shattered. Betrayal isn't just pain, it's disorientation. It's feeling like you're falling in the dark with no idea where the floor is. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't imagine, was that Derek's betrayal wasn't just emotional, it wasn't just an affair. It was something far darker, something that would lead me to a hospital bed, unable to blink, listening to him whisper the date and time he planned to end my life. And it all started long before the crash. I didn't meet Lauren in person until much later, but I felt her presence long before her name ever appeared on my husband's phone. It started with a laugh, a soft, sugary laugh floating through the speaker when Derek answered a call in the kitchen one night. He stepped into the hallway so fast you would have thought the phone burned him. When he came back, his face carried a glow I hadn't seen in years. Not the tired, strained version of the man I married. Something lighter, something freed, something dangerous. "Who was that?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Work," he said too quickly. "Just work." But I knew the sound of a woman flirting. I'd heard it 1,000,000 times from my students in the hallway, giggling over boys, leaning into something new and exciting and forbidden. I tried convincing myself I was imagining it, that the girl on the phone was just a coworker. But then the signs began multiplying faster than I could deny them. His clothes changed. I don't mean just a new shirt or two, I mean everything. Suddenly he owned fitted button-downs he'd never worn before, cologne I didn't recognize, shoes that looked like they belonged in a magazine ad. He trimmed his beard differently, styled his hair. I saw a version of Derek come back to life, but it wasn't for me. It was for someone else. "There's this new assistant," he said one night casually, too casually. "She's young, but smart, ambitious." The word young stabbed me more than everything else. Young meant fresh, exciting, fun, all the things I hadn't felt in a long time because I'd been pouring myself into keeping our marriage together. "What's her name?" I asked. He barely glanced up from his laptop. "Lauren." Just hearing it made something twist inside me. I tried to push the feeling down, but it grew sharper every time he mentioned her, which, suddenly, was extremely often. Lauren handled the meeting. Lauren caught the mistake in the spreadsheet. Lauren stayed late again. Poor thing works too hard. He wasn't even aware he was saying her name with a softness he never used with me anymore. A softness that belonged to early infatuation, not a professional relationship. I wanted to confront him, but the words lodged in my throat. I didn't want to be the jealous wife, the insecure wife, the wife who pushed him away by asking questions he'd claim were unfair. So I watched, and listening became my superpower. One night, I brought him lunch at work, a surprise, something I used to do all the time. When I opened the door to his office, they were both inside. Derek wasn't sitting in his chair. He was leaning over Lauren's shoulder as she typed. Their heads were too close, their voices too soft. She giggled at something he whispered, and he didn't step back. Their body language wasn't professional, it was intimate. And when he finally noticed me standing there, he jumped back so fast that Lauren blinked in confusion. "Alicia," he said, plastering on a smile, "what are you doing here?" "Lunch," I whispered. "I thought you might be hungry." "Oh, right, thanks." The look on his face wasn't gratitude, it was annoyance. At me, for interrupting them. Lauren smiled politely and introduced herself, but her eyes betrayed something else. She knew exactly who I was, but she also knew Derek hadn't shut the door on her. That alone told me everything. Over the next few months, Derek practically lived at work. Overnight meetings, last-minute trips, company emergencies. I'd wake up to an empty side of the bed so often that it began to feel normal. And every time he left, his phone stayed glued to him like a second heartbeat. One morning, while he showered, his phone buzzed on the counter. For once, he'd forgotten to take it with him. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But when trust begins to rot, silence becomes unbearable. I picked it up. The screen lit up with a message preview from Lauren. Last night was incredible. Still thinking about it. My stomach turned to ice. My throat closed. Every doubt I'd buried erupted at once. I opened the messages. I shouldn't have, but I did. Lines and lines of conversations. Good mornings, good nights, private jokes, photos, plans. And the worst of all the way, Derek called her baby. A name he used to say to me with his head buried in my neck on Sunday mornings. I dropped the phone. Not dramatically, not theatrically. My fingers just stopped working. And in that moment, I felt something inside me break, quiet and deep. I didn't confront him that day, or the day after, or the week after. Because the thing about betrayal is that it freezes you. It steals not only your trust, but your voice. I kept replaying everything in my mind. Every change, every late night, every lie. And I wasn't angry yet. Not then. I was grieving. Grieving a marriage Derek had already buried long before my accident. Then came the final crack in the foundation. He came home one night smelling like a perfume I'd never worn. And instead of showering immediately, he walked past me, humming, happy, light, a completely different man. I stared at him while he opened the fridge. "Where were you?" I asked softly. "Work," he replied without turning around. "You smell like someone else." He froze, just for a second, but I saw it. That pause told me everything. "Alicia, don't start," he muttered. "Don't start." As if I had become the problem. As if my pain was an inconvenience. As if the truth was something I was supposed to pretend not to see. It was that night that I started packing a small bag. I didn't know if I'd leave yet, but I felt the need to prepare, to protect myself. I couldn't stay with a man who didn't love me anymore. Or so I thought. What I didn't realize was that Derek didn't just want me gone emotionally. He wanted me gone permanently. And before I could walk away from him, he had already decided how he would walk away from me. My accident wasn't an accident. It was step one of his plan. The night of the accident is a blur of rain, headlights, and a sinking feeling I couldn't name. But before the crash, before the metal twisted around me like a trap, there were moments, small, sharp moments that I keep replaying even now, wondering how I missed the danger closing in. It started earlier that evening. Derek was strangely calm, almost gentle. He came home with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, something he hadn't done in months. He asked about my day, offered me the last spring roll, even smiled the way he used to when we were newly married. At first, I wanted to believe this meant he was coming back to me, that he had ended things with Lauren, that he saw me again. But the smile didn't reach his eyes, and when he hugged me from behind while I washed dishes, it felt wrong, performative, like someone acting out a role they'd already abandoned. "You're going to the parent-teacher conference tonight, right?" he asked casually. Too casually. "Yeah," I said slowly. "It ends around 8. He kissed the back of my neck. A long, deliberate kiss. "Drive safe." The way he said it made something tighten in my chest. It wasn't a warning. It was a farewell. Still, I pushed the thought away. I grabbed my bag, told him I'd see him later, and walked out into the cool Georgia evening. I didn't know that would be the last time I'd see Derek, while fully conscious, fully mobile, fully me. The conference ran longer than expected. Parents always had more to say when you were tired, when you wanted to go home, when you needed rest. I packed up my folders and stepped outside into a heavy drizzle. Not quite rain, but enough to slick the roads. I texted Derek, "On my way." He didn't reply. I got in my car, turned the heat on low, and started driving home along the familiar highway I'd driven 1,000 times. The rain intensified, tapping against the windshield in erratic patterns. I remember feeling uneasy, like something unseen pressed against the back of my mind. My wipers swiped back and forth, but the road still shimmered in distorted reflections. Then, out of habit, I pressed the brake slightly as traffic slowed. Except nothing happened. The pedal sank under my foot like a dead weight, useless. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs. I pressed harder. Nothing. I pumped it. No response, no resistance, no friction. Just empty motion. A hollow scream tore from my chest. The road ahead blurred. A truck loomed. I yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, tires skidding on the wet pavement. The world spun violently. I felt the sickening weightlessness of losing control. Then an explosion of metal, glass shattering. My body thrown sideways. A crack, a second crack, a taste of blood, darkness crashing over me like a closing door. For a long moment, I wasn't sure if I was alive or dead. Voices echoed faintly. Sirens. Hands pulling at the door. A paramedic shouting something I couldn't understand. Then a mask on my face. Then nothing. When I woke up in the hospital days later, paralyzed, silent, aware the pieces began fitting together. The memory of the brakes failing wouldn't leave me alone. Over and over, I replayed that moment. The pedal sinking. The way it felt wrong even before I pressed it hard. At first, I blamed the rain, the weather, bad luck. But then I remembered something else, small but horrifying. A few nights before the crash, I heard Derek leave the house around midnight. When I asked him the next morning where he went, he said, "Couldn't sleep, took a drive." I didn't question it. But now, lying there trapped in my own body, I remembered how long he was gone. How he smelled like cold air and engine grease when he slipped back into bed. My brain connected the dots slowly, painfully, like someone forcing a puzzle piece into place until it snapped. He didn't take a drive. He went to the garage, to my car, to the brakes. But even that realization couldn't prepare me for what I would eventually hear with my own ears. Days after the crash, as I lay there listening to Derek whisper to Lauren about ending my life support, I replayed the accident in my mind. Was it an accident at all? The question grew louder. He needed me gone. He wanted a life with her. He wanted the insurance money. And I, blindly trusting, desperately hopeful, never saw the truth rising beneath my feet. But part 4 doesn't end with the crash. It ends with the moment in the hospital, when the truth stopped being a suspicion and became a certainty. That moment came when Derek returned to my room late at night, when he thought I was nothing more than an unconscious body kept warm by machines. He stood beside my bed, exhaled deeply, and whispered, "Everything went exactly the way it needed to. She won't make it another week." My world collapsed a second time. And this time, I wasn't in a car. I was fully aware, fully awake, and trapped in a body that refused to scream. But the story wasn't over, because even in darkness, even in paralysis, even in fear, I was still alive. And he had no idea. The most dangerous thing Derek ever did was assume I couldn't hear him. The most powerful thing I ever did was listen. For the next few days, I lived in 2 realities at once. On the outside, I was a silent, motionless body in a hospital bed. On the inside, I was a storm, violent, terrified, awake in ways I had never been before. Derek kept visiting, always at night, always checking the hallway before coming in, always whispering. And every time he spoke, the truth dug deeper under my skin, until I could taste the bitterness of it. He didn't love me. He didn't fear losing me. He feared I might live. The doctors believed I had a long road ahead, maybe months of rehabilitation, if I ever woke from what they called a low-responsive state. But Derek and Lauren had different plans. I learned that on the 3rd night. Derek entered quietly, the door barely opening. A faint scent of cologne drifted over me. His expensive one, the one he wore on anniversaries and special events. Not for me this time, for her. His shoes tapped softly across the tile. He stood over my bed and exhaled. 2 more days, he whispered. The doctor said they can ethically withdraw care if her condition doesn't improve, and I'll make sure they believe she isn't improving. My lungs tightened around the ventilator tube. 2 more days. 2 more days until he erased me for good. But he wasn't alone this time. A second pair of footsteps approached. Light ones, hesitant ones. Lauren. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Derek, are you sure?" What if she wakes up? She won't, he said coldly. She can't. The neurologist already said the swelling is too severe. And even if she did wake up, she'd be a burden. You don't want that. I don't want that. This is mercy. Mercy. That word made my blood burn. Mercy was holding someone's hand in pain. Mercy was fighting for someone you loved. Mercy was not standing beside them, plotting the hour you wanted them dead. I heard Lauren sniffle. I feel guilty. I mean, she's your wife. Derek scoffed. Not for long. The way he said it flat, detached, felt like another kind of death. And then he said something that froze every cell in my body. Once she's gone, the insurance clears. We can leave this town. Start over. No more hiding. Insurance. Money. That's what my life was worth to him. Not memories. Not vows. Not the nights we fell asleep tangled together in the early days of our marriage. Just money. He lowered his voice even more. Besides, the brakes worked perfectly, Lauren gasped. Derek, stop. Don't say that here. Relax, he said. No one hears us. But I heard every syllable, every damning detail, every word that confirmed the truth I had been trying not to believe. He sabotaged my car. He tried to kill me. And now he was going to finish what he started. My heartbeat spiked so fast the monitor beside me beeped louder. Derek paused. That's just a reflex, he muttered. The doctor said her brain misfires sometimes. It's nothing. Nothing. That's what I was to him. A problem he needed to erase. A ghost he hadn't quite managed to bury. They stayed for another 5 minutes arguing softly, whispering promises about their future, until a nurse walked in unexpectedly. A young nurse with tired eyes. She glanced at the machine, then at Derek and Lauren. Visiting hours ended 20 minutes ago, she said politely. I'm going to have to ask you both to leave. Derek's voice stiffened. We just need a moment. I'm sorry, the nurse replied gently but firmly. Not tonight. That nurse, whoever she was, saved my life more than once. I didn't know her name yet, but her voice held something I hadn't heard in days. Something like suspicion, something like empathy, something like hope. After Derek and Lauren left, she stood quietly at my bedside. I felt her studying me, really studying me, not just the machines, not just the charts, me. After a full minute, she leaned close to my ear and whispered, If you can hear me, squeeze your fingers, anything. Just try. My body didn't respond, not because I couldn't, but because fear held every muscle hostage. She didn't give up. If you're in there, she murmured softly, I'm with you. I'll figure this out. A tear slid down my temple. Maybe she saw it, maybe she didn't. But something in her voice anchored me to the life Derek was trying to rip away. Hope. Real, fragile hope. And I knew something else. If I didn't find a way to communicate, if I didn't fight harder than ever before, Derek would get exactly what he wanted, and I would disappear, forever. But part 5 ends here, on the brink of something new, because hope is dangerous. Hope wakes people up, and I was about to wake up in more ways than one. The morning after the nurse whispered to me, something changed inside my body, subtle, small, almost imperceptible, but real. I felt it like a spark under my skin, a faint pulse of life that didn't come from the machines around me. I wasn't just awake, I was awakening, but I couldn't show it yet. Not until I understood who I could trust. Not until I knew how far Derek was willing to go. The nurse, the one who had asked me to squeeze my fingers, I saw her again later that day. Her name tag said, Nurse Avery. She had the kind of voice that made you feel seen, even in silence. She checked my vitals, straightened my blanket, and scanned the monitors while humming quietly to herself, like she was trying to comfort the room. But then she did something no other nurse had done. She looked into my eyes. Not past them, into them. Your pupils track, she whispered. You're following me, aren't you? She leaned closer. I think you're more aware than anyone realizes. Panic fluttered inside me. Could she really tell? Could she see what Derek was trying to hide from everyone else? I tried to blink intentionally, but my eyelids barely trembled. A ghost of movement. But she saw it. Her mouth parted slightly. There it is, she whispered. You're in there. Relief flooded through me like warmth spreading under ice. But before she could say more, the door creaked open. Derek stepped inside. Avery straightened instantly, masking her expression. She became professional again, distant, the perfect nurse with neutral eyes. Derek nodded at her without real interest. "How is she today?" he asked, his voice as smooth as polished stone. Avery forced a small smile. "Stable. No neurological improvement at this time." Derek's shoulders relaxed slightly. His relief was a knife twisting inside me. "Thank you," he said. "You've all been great." Avery nodded and stepped away from the bed, but she didn't leave. She lingered, watching him, watching me, watching the space between us fill with unspoken danger. Finally, she said, "If you need anything, Mr. Matthews, press the call button." Then she walked out, but I saw at the slight hesitation in her step, the mark of someone who knew something was wrong. Derek took the seat beside my bed. His presence was different when no one else was around. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at my face with a blankness that made my skin crawl. "You look peaceful," he murmured. "Funny." He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. It took everything in me not to flinch. "It's almost over." My pulse spiked. The monitor beeped softly, betraying my fear. Derek looked at it, his brow furrowing. Reflex," he muttered. But the unease in his tone told me he wasn't fully convinced. He stood and walked around the room, pacing slowly. "The doctor is coming by later," he said. "We're going to talk about next steps." Next steps. The phrase tasted like poison. He wanted to speed up the timeline. He wanted me gone before anyone could question him, before insurance paperwork became complicated, before guilt made Lauren crack. Before the nurse, Avery put together the pieces. He turned back toward me. "You know," he whispered, stepping close, "if you could hear me, you'd understand this is for the best." My heart thudded against the ventilator's rhythm. He smiled faintly. "But hearing isn't something you do anymore, is it?" I heard everything, every lie, every plan, every word soaked in betrayal. He stayed another 10 minutes, talking softly about how life would be easier soon, how he and Lauren would start fresh, how he hoped I didn't suffer. When he finally left, the room felt lighter, as if the air itself had been choking while he was there. Minutes later, the door opened again. Avery slipped inside, shutting it quietly behind her. She checked the hallway twice before stepping closer. "I don't trust him," she whispered without preamble. "I don't trust the way he looks at you." My heart raced again, but this time with hope. She glanced at the monitor and shook her head slightly. "Your vitals change when he's in the room. They don't change like that for anyone else. That tells me you're responding consciously." She took a breath, steadying herself. "If you can hear me, I need you to try something. Anything. Move a finger. Blink. Change your breathing." I gathered everything: fear, anger, pain, desperation, and pushed it into one tiny command. "Lift your finger. Move it. Please, move." And then, like a miracle, my index finger twitched. Not much. Not enough to be obvious, but enough for Avery's eyes to widen. "There," she whispered fiercely. "Oh my God, you are awake." A tear slipped down her cheek as she grabbed my hand carefully. "I won't let anything happen to you." She looked at the door again, lowered her voice to a whisper so thin it was almost breath. "Listen, they're discussing withdrawing life support in the next 48 hours. Your husband is pushing for it." My body went cold with terror. I wanted to scream, to thrash, to sit up and claw my way out of that bed. Instead, my finger trembled again, a frantic attempt to show her everything I couldn't say. She nodded quickly. I know. I'm going to tell the neurologist, but I need to be careful. If your husband finds out, you can respond." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. We both knew Derek didn't want a witness to his crime. A soft knock interrupted her. Avery jumped slightly and wiped her face quickly before opening the door. It wasn't Derek this time. It was Lauren, standing there with wide, hollow eyes. And for the first time, I saw it. She wasn't just guilty. She was afraid. Is she still unresponsive?" Lauren asked, her voice trembling. Avery nodded smoothly. "There's been no change." Lauren exhaled in deep relief. "Good." The world tilted. Good, good. They both wanted me silent, wanted me gone, wanted the future Derek promised her. A future built on my death. Avery kept her expression neutral, but her fingers tightened on the chart in her hand. You can go in if you want, she offered. Just don't disturb the equipment. Lauren shook her head. No, I just needed to know. She left as quickly as she came. When the door closed, Avery leaned closer to me and whispered, I'm staying on shift tonight. I'll find a way to protect you. Hope surged again, a thin thread, but enough to hold on to, enough to keep breathing. Because part 6 ends with a truth I finally understood. Derek wanted me dead. Lauren wanted me gone. But someone else, someone unexpected, had taken my side. And she wasn't going to let me die quietly. The war for my life had officially begun. That night felt longer than any night of my life. The hospital lights dimmed, the hallway noise faded, and the quiet settled around me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. But it wasn't peaceful. Not with Derek somewhere in the city, counting the hours until I was gone. Not with Lauren nervously waiting for her new beginning. Not with the clock ticking down on the machines that kept me alive. The only thing keeping the terror from swallowing me whole was the knowledge that Avery was still on shift. She had promised to protect me, and for the first time since the accident, someone believed I was still here. Around 11 p.m., Avery slipped into the room. Her steps were soft, careful, practiced. She closed the blinds, checked the hallway, and finally whispered, All right, I'm here, and we're going to make sure you stay here. She leaned over me, her voice barely audible. I talked to the neurologist. I told him I saw slight responsiveness in your right hand. My heart jolted. Yes, she was doing it. He wants to run another EEG tomorrow morning. If we can show any consistent brain activity linked to commands, they legally cannot withdraw life support. Relief washed over me so hard it almost hurt. But Avery wasn't finished. There's a problem, she whispered. Your husband doesn't want another EEG. He's already requested a different doctor's assessment. Fear surged again, sharp and cold. Derek was trying to stop any test that might prove I was conscious. Of course he was. He needed me silent. Avery squeezed my hand gently. Don't panic. The neurologist overruled him. I pushed hard. He's coming at 9 a.m. Morning. All I had to do was survive until morning. But the air in the room shifted suddenly, like the temperature dropped. Avery noticed it too. She straightened, checked the monitor, then the door. Your heart rate spiked, she whispered. Is it pain? Or... The door handle clicked. Avery stepped back so fast she nearly knocked over a tray. Derek walked in, not smiling, not pretending. His face looked hollowed out by exhaustion or guilt, or fear that something wasn't going according to plan. You're here late, he said to Avery. His tone wasn't curious. It was suspicious. Too suspicious. Avery kept her voice steady. I'm covering an overnight shift. Derek nodded, but his eyes were fixed on me, studying me, searching for something. My blood iced. He saw something. I could feel it. He moved closer to the bed, leaning down so his face filled my vision. Still no change, he murmured. It wasn't a statement. It was a test. He wanted to see if I reacted. Avery stepped forward immediately. Mr. Matthews, she needs rest. You shouldn't stimulate. I'm her husband, he snapped. The bite in his voice was something I'd never heard him use with anyone but me. He lowered his head closer, close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath. I talked to the doctor, he whispered. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. The monitor beside me beeped erratically. Derek's jaw tightened. He looked at the machine, then at me. Strange, he murmured. Your heart is acting up at the perfect times. Avery stepped in again, shielding part of my view with her body. Stress responses are common in patients like her, she said sharply. If you're finished visiting, I need to adjust her medications. Derek stared at Avery. A long, slow stare that made my skin crawl. Then he smiled. A small, dead smile. Of course, I'll come by tomorrow. When he finally left, Avery closed the door quickly, her face pale. He knows, she whispered. He suspects you're conscious. Panic tore through me, wild and unstoppable. Avery touched my arm, grounding me. Listen, even if he suspects, he can't do anything tonight. He doesn't have access to your meds. He can't change your ventilator settings. He can't touch anything without signing forms. But her voice trembled. She wasn't as certain as she pretended to be. Midnight passed, then 1, then 2. Avery left only when another nurse arrived, but before she went, she leaned down and whispered, 9 a.m. Hold on until 9. Hours crawled by, machines hummed, footsteps echoed faintly through the hallway. My mind drifted between fear and exhaustion. But then, around 4 a.m., something happened that nearly ended everything. The door opened slowly, too slowly, not the confident push of a nurse, not the rushed steps of a doctor. Someone was sneaking in. My throat tightened. A silhouette slipped inside, tall, broad shoulders, moving with careful, practiced quiet. Derek. He closed the door behind him, stepped into the dim light, and approached my bed. He wasn't wearing his wedding ring. His eyes were dark, sunken, wild. "I can't wait any longer," he whispered. "I can't risk them finding something tomorrow. Oh God, no, no, no." He reached for the ventilator tubing. My heart jolted so violently, the machine screeched an alarm. Derek froze. Footsteps rushed toward the room instantly. A nurse burst inside. "Sir, what are you doing?" Derek jerked his hand back. She looked like she was choking," he stammered. "I was just checking." The nurse frowned. "You don't touch ventilators. Ever." Derek stepped away quickly, masking his panic. You're right. I'm sorry." She checked the machines, the tubing, my vitals. Everything was intact. I was alive. Barely. Derek stayed only 1 more minute, his eyes burning into me, then left before anyone else arrived. The nurse shook her head. "Families panic," she muttered softly. "They do strange things. If only she knew." When dawn finally bled through the blinds, my body felt like it had aged years. But I was alive. Avery returned just before the neurologist arrived. She leaned close, whispering, "This is it. Today we prove you're in there. Today everything changes." My fear didn't disappear, but something stronger rose to meet it. Resolve, determination, the will to live. Part 7 ends here on the edge of the moment that would determine whether I survived or disappeared forever. Morning didn't come gently. It slammed into the room like a spotlight, exposing every fear I'd tried to swallow through the night. The blinds glowed with early sunlight. The hallway buzzed with nurses switching shifts, and the air felt tighter, heavier, like the world knew today would decide whether I lived or disappeared. Avery slipped into the room just after 7. Her hair was tied back, her scrubs crisp, her expression tense but determined. She closed the door softly, then immediately scanned every corner of the room like she expected Derek to be hiding inside. "We made it," she whispered, exhaling shakily. "You're still here, you did it." My heart rate fluttered on the monitor, a quiet acknowledgement. But Avery leaned in, her tone turning grave. "Listen, I need you to stay calm. The neurologist will be here in 2 hours. That's our window. But your husband? He's been calling the nurses' station all morning asking what time the evaluation is." Of course he had. Derek was watching the clock as closely as I was, but for the opposite reason. Avery lowered her voice even more. "I told the team not to let him in until after the EEG. No exceptions." Relief rushed through me so fast it made my vision pulse. Avery wasn't just helping me, she was protecting me. "The neurologist is bringing a second consultant too," she said. 2 specialists, 2 signatures. That means if they detect even the slightest brain response, your husband can't override it. For the first time, survival didn't feel like a dream, it felt possible. But we weren't safe yet. Every minute until 9 a.m. felt like walking across glass. Nurses came in, checking equipment, adjusting medication, unaware that they were moving through a battlefield. At 8 sharp, Dr. Singh, the neurologist, arrived. He was carrying a laptop, electrodes, and a look of intense focus. He closed the door behind him and said quietly to Avery, "Where's her husband?" "Not allowed in yet," she answered without hesitation. "Good," Dr. Singh said. "This needs to be done without interference." He turned to me, his voice soft but firm. "Gabrielle, I'm going to ask you to do a few things. If you can hear me, try to follow the instructions as closely as you can. I could. I would. My life depended on it. Avery stayed beside me, her hand on my forearm steadying me, anchoring me. Doctor. Singh placed the electrodes on my forehead and temples, checked the connections, then looked straight into my half-open eyes. Gabrielle, he said clearly, if you can hear me, try to blink once. I focused every ounce of my strength on that one command. Blink, blink, blink. My eyelid twitched. A tiny tremor, barely visible, but Dr. Singh leaned forward with sudden intensity. There, he murmured. Again. Blink. Another twitch, stronger this time. Avery gasped softly. Dr. Singh smiled. She's responding. He turned to his assistant. Mark that. We're beginning the conscious response protocol. He held up his pen. Gabrielle, follow it with your eyes. He moved it left. My eyes dragged left, painfully slow, shaking at the edges. But they moved. He moved it right. My gaze followed. A clean trace on the EEG mirrored it. Incredible, he whispered. Completely aligned eye tracking. Avery squeezed my arm. You're doing so good. Keep going, Dr. Singh continued. Gabrielle, blink twice for yes, once for no. Do you understand? 2 blinks. Clear, deliberate. She understands, Dr. Singh said with certainty. She is fully conscious. Relief hit me so hard my chest tightened. Avery let out a shaky breath, tears filling her eyes. I knew it, she whispered. I told everyone. I knew she was there. But the moment of triumph shattered with a loud, jarring sound, Derek's voice bellowing from the hallway. Why can't I go in? That is my wife. My blood iced instantly. The door shook like he was trying to push it open. A male nurse blocked him. Sir, you need to wait. I said let me in. Dr. Singh's assistant went stiff with fear. Avery moved toward the door, positioning herself between me and whatever storm was about to hit. Dr. Singh kept working, refusing to stop. We have enough evidence already, he said. Get ready to document the final verification. But before he could finish, the door burst open. Derek shoved past the nurse, wild-eyed, breathless, wearing the same clothes from last night. His gaze snapped to the EEG screen, then to me, my eyes open wider than usual, responding, alive. His entire face drained of color. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Avery stepped in front of the EEG machine immediately. Mr. Matthews, you need to leave. Now. What did you do? Derek snarled. What are you telling them? Dr. Singh straightened, calm but firm. Your wife is conscious, Mr. Matthews. She has locked-in syndrome. She can hear and understand everything. She has been aware the entire time. Derek froze. My heart pounded so violently the monitor beeped faster and faster. He turned slowly toward me, and in a voice so low only I could hear it, he said, You heard me last night, didn't you? My pulse spiked. The monitor screamed. Derek lunged toward the ventilator. Avery reacted instantly. Security, she shouted. Dr. Singh grabbed Derek's arm. Derek jerked away, wild. She was supposed to be gone already. The room erupted into chaos. Nurses rushed in. A security officer barreled through the doorway. Sir, step away from the patient. Derek fought them, screaming, She's lying. She's tricking you. She's not conscious, this is fake. Security forced him back, pinning him to the wall as he thrashed. Get off me, but it was too late. His outburst told the entire room the truth. Dr. Singh spoke calmly, clinically. Mr. Matthews, you are no longer permitted near this patient. You will be escorted off the premises. And given your statement, the police will be contacted immediately. Derek's face twisted with pure, feral panic. He didn't yell now. He didn't fight. He just stared at me like he was looking at a ghost rising from a grave he had dug himself. Gabrielle, he whispered, don't do this. They dragged him out of the room, still staring at me the entire way. When the door finally slammed shut, Avery came to my side instantly, wiping tears from her cheeks. You did it, she whispered. You're safe now. But I wasn't. Not yet. Derek wasn't going to stop. He'd only lost round 1. The real war was just beginning. Security dragged Derek out of the room, but the echo of his voice clung to the air like smoke. Even after the door slammed shut, I could still hear him whispering my name in that fractured, desperate tone. Avery stood beside me, breathing hard, trying to settle her nerves. The adrenaline buzzing through her hands made them shake as she adjusted my monitors. "He's gone," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "He won't hurt you again." But we both knew that wasn't guaranteed. Derek had crossed too many lines to back down now. He'd tried to disable my ventilator. He'd stormed into a restricted medical evaluation. He'd screamed in front of hospital staff that I was supposed to be gone. Men like him didn't melt away quietly. They escalated. Outside the room, I heard muffled voices, security, nurses, administrators all trying to process what had just happened. Dr. Singh stayed with me, documenting the results of the EEG as officers escorted Derek out of the ICU. "Gabrielle," he said gently, "you're safe for now. Security is posted at the entrance of this ward. No visitors without our direct approval." One blink, slow but deliberate. Relief and fear tangled inside me. Avery took my hand again, grounding me with her steady presence. "The police are already on their way," she said softly. "When they get here, they're going to want a statement from you." A statement. My blood turned to ice. A statement meant I had to tell them everything Derek said, everything he tried to do, and it meant he would know, without question, that I was the one who exposed him. As if reading my fear, Dr. Singh said, "You won't be alone for any of it. We'll be right here." Minutes later, security radioed that Derek had left the intensive care floor, but not the hospital. He was somewhere in the building, refusing to go home, pacing the lobby like a storm cloud waiting to burst. My heart rate spiked again. Avery saw it. "Ignore him," she whispered. "He can't touch you now." But that wasn't true. Not yet. Not with the police still en route. Not with Derek still inside the same building where I lay helpless, trapped in machines. Every passing second felt like waiting for a bomb to explode. Around 10 a.m., 2 detectives entered my room, their expressions grim. Detective Harris and Detective Monroe. They listened as Dr. Singh explained my condition, the proof of consciousness, the dangerous outburst from Derek. Avery retrieved the nurse's report from the night before, the one documenting Derek's attempt to touch my ventilator tubing. The detectives exchanged a look. Something heavy, something serious. Then Monroe stepped closer to me. "Mrs. Matthews," he said, his voice slow, careful. "We understand you can blink once for yes, twice for no. Is that correct?" One blink, clear. His jaw tightened. "We're going to ask you some questions. These will help us determine whether your husband poses a threat to your life." Avery stayed right beside me, one hand steady on my arm. "Gabrielle," she whispered, "you can tell them. You're safe." But safety had been an illusion for weeks. Still, I blinked once. "Yes." "Ask." Detective Monroe began. "Did your husband intentionally try to harm you before your hospitalization?" One blink. "Yes." "Did he ever admit to wanting you off life support?" One blink. "Yes." "Did he tamper with your medical equipment last night?" One blink. "Yes." Detective Harris exhaled sharply. "We need to ask this carefully," he said. "Did your husband cause the incident that put you in the hospital?" My lungs tried to tighten, but the ventilator kept its rhythm. This was it. This was the moment everything turned. One blink. "Yes." Silence fell like a falling building. Monroe leaned in closer. "Mrs. Matthews, are you saying your husband deliberately caused your injury?" My fingers tingled from the blood pounding through me. One blink. "Yes." Avery covered her mouth. Dr. Singh lowered his head. The detectives both froze for several long seconds, absorbing the weight of what I had just confirmed. When they finally spoke, their voices were clipped and cold. "We're opening an attempted murder investigation immediately." My whole body trembled, not from fear this time, but from the release of carrying that truth alone for so long. As they prepared paperwork to secure the crime scene of my accident, chaos erupted outside my room again. Not shouting, not fighting, running, heavy, fast footsteps, security yelling. Avery darted to the door. When she cracked it open, a security guard sprinted past, shouting, "He's coming back up. He's on the elevator." Derek. He had refused to leave the building, and now he was forcing his way back up to ICU. Panic shot through me. My heart monitor wailed. Detective Monroe reacted immediately. "Get her out of this room," he ordered. "Now." The staff swarmed me. They unplugged portable monitors, secured my ventilator tubing, unlocked the bed wheels. Everything moved so fast it blurred. "We're taking you to a restricted wing," Avery said, gripping the bed rails as she helped push. "Somewhere he can't reach." Down the hall, an alarm began blaring, the sound of a security lockdown. Too late, the elevator dinged. I didn't have to see him to feel him. I knew Derek was here. His voice erupted down the hallway in a feral, enraged roar. "Where is she? Gabrielle!" Nurses screamed. Security yelled. A crash rang out, a body hitting a wall. Avery pushed my bed faster, breathless. "Don't look, don't listen." But I had to listen. I heard every second, Derek fighting, Derek calling my name, Derek trying to reach me for the final time. Detectives and guards swarmed him, a taser crackled. Derek screamed, another crash, then silence, heavy, final silence. The bed stopped moving. Avery looked down at me, shaking. "It's over," she whispered, voice raw. "He won't get near you again." And for the first time since the nightmare began, I believed her. Derek was no longer a shadow in the hallway, no longer a whisper in my ear, no longer a man pretending to be grieving while planning my death. He was a criminal, caught, exposed, and dragged away in handcuffs. But what none of us knew was that the real battle was only beginning, because now the world would learn what Derek had done, and he would fight to the last breath to stop the truth from destroying him. The police took Derek into custody, but even as they wheeled me into the restricted wing, I could still feel the ghost of his presence lingering in the air. Trauma does that. It stains the walls, clings to the sheets, hides in the hum of machines. The new room was smaller, darker, quieter. No visitors allowed. 2 security officers posted outside. Avery stayed with me through the transfer, refusing to leave until she saw every machine reconnected, every tube checked, every monitor stabilized. "You're safe now," she whispered again. But safety, to me, had always been a temporary thing, a fragile thing, a thing men like Derek could shatter with one decision. I blinked once, not for her reassurance, but to let her know I understood. She squeezed my hand gently. "The detectives are preparing your case," she continued. "Everything you told them is now part of an official report. The hospital administration has documented the attempted interference with your ventilator. They're treating this as attempted homicide." Hearing the word homicide, even inside my own mind, made me feel like gravity increased. Like the room was tilting. Someone had tried to kill me. Not just someone, my husband, the man whose vows had included the words, "in sickness and in health." Around noon, the detectives returned. Their expressions were harder, tighter. They briefed Avery and the neurologist outside the door, speaking in low, controlled voices. Then they came inside, notebooks in hand. Detective Monroe pulled a chair beside my bed. "Mrs. Matthews," he began, "your husband is officially in police custody. He is being charged with attempted murder, attempted tampering with life-sustaining equipment, and interference with medical care." Avery's breath hitched. "Doctor?" Singh nodded grimly, but Monroe wasn't finished. "We questioned him this morning. He claims your accident was exactly that, an accident." My heart rate spiked. Detective Harris stepped closer. But then he said something interesting. He admitted he was emotionally overwhelmed, and that letting you go peacefully was something the doctors had discussed with him. That was Derek's specialty, hiding a lie inside a truth, carefully sewn, calculated. Monroe leaned forward. "We need your full account of everything you heard, everything he said, everything he did. It will strengthen the arrest warrant and ensure he cannot manipulate the narrative." The room blurred at the edges. Fear squeezed my chest. Giving the police a full account meant exposing the darkest parts of the nightmare, but I had already survived those moments. I could survive repeating them. Slowly, painfully, I blinked once. Yes. Avery retrieved the alphabet board. It took nearly an hour, letter by letter, blink by blink, to lay out the truth. The detectives listened in silence, no interruption, no disbelief, just mounting horror. When I finished spelling the sentence, he said, "End her life support today." Harris closed his notebook with a heavy exhale. "We have enough to bury him," he said, "but we're going to get even more." An hour later, the hospital legal team arrived to protect my rights and coordinate with law enforcement. While they spoke with Dr. Singh in the hallway, Avery leaned close, whispering, "You're strong, stronger than you know." Her voice cracked slightly, like she'd been fighting tears for hours. I blinked once in gratitude. For the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. But just when the tension in the room began to loosen, Detective Monroe returned with a grim expression. "We have a development," he said. Avery stepped back, bracing herself. "Derek has a lawyer, a very aggressive one." My blood chilled. "Of course he did." Monroe continued. "He's claiming that your responses are unreliable, that the EEG test was performed under stress and not medically controlled." Avery let out a disgusted sound. "Unbelievable." Monroe held up a hand. "I know, but here's the bigger issue. He's trying to get a court order to regain medical decision-making rights." The words sliced through me like ice. Regain power over my life support, over whether I lived or died. My heart monitor jumped erratically. "Easy," Avery whispered. "Breathe. You're okay." But I wasn't okay. Derek fighting a criminal charge was one thing. Derek trying to regain control of my medical decisions was something else entirely. That was lethal. Monroe spoke quickly. "We are fighting the request, but we need your sister, next of kin, or someone you trust to file emergency guardianship to protect your medical rights." A problem, a huge one. I didn't have nearby family. My closest relative lived across the country, and Derek had isolated me from almost everyone else. The detectives saw the fear in my eyes. "Is there anyone you trust?" Monroe asked. I blinked once. "Avery." Her hand flew to her chest. "Me? If," Monroe clarified gently, "you want her to temporarily act on your behalf to prevent your husband from regaining control." The room was silent. Avery's eyes shimmered with shock and something deeper loyalty. "If you want that," she whispered, "I'll do it. I'll protect you, I promise." That was all I needed. I blinked twice slowly. "Yes." Avery nodded, emotion thick in her voice. "Then we do it, right now." The next hour moved fast. Papers, signatures, hospital oversight, a judge consulted via emergency session. By the time it was over, Avery was legally authorized to make medical decisions for me. And Derek was legally barred from coming within 50 feet of my room. But Derek wasn't Derek unless he found a way to strike back. And he did. Just as evening settled, the detectives returned with a new piece of news that made Avery's face drain of color. Derek had filed a public claim, stating that the hospital had coerced and manipulated me. He accused Avery of influencing my responses. He accused Dr. Singh of forcing a narrative. He accused the entire staff of emotional abuse. The detectives prepared us before speaking. "He's trying to destroy the credibility of everyone who protected you," Monroe said. "He's panicking. But this also means he's going to get more dangerous." My pulse quickened. Avery clenched her jaw. "Let him try," she said quietly, her hand resting protectively on mine. "He doesn't get to hurt her anymore." But we all knew the truth. People like Derek didn't give up. They didn't fade away. They fought until there was nothing left to lose. And Derek had just lost everything. Tomorrow, he would begin his war, and I would have to survive it. The next morning arrived with an eerie stillness, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful but warning. A quiet before something breaks. Avery sat beside my bed, her scrubs wrinkled, her eyes tired from another sleepless night watching over me. The emergency guardianship papers were finalized just hours ago, and she hadn't left my side since. "We're safe today," she whispered, more like a prayer than a statement. But even she didn't fully believe it. Neither did I. Around 9 a.m., the detectives returned with updates that made the air grow heavier. "Derek's lawyer is filing motions fast," Detective Monroe said. "He's contesting your responses. He's challenging the validity of the EEG, and he's publicly accusing this hospital of misconduct." Dr. Singh shook his head, disgust sharp in his voice. "They're trying to create doubt before the evidence cements." Harris stepped closer to my bed. "He's fighting because he knows the truth is closing in on him." Avery crossed her arms, anger flickering behind her eyes. "Let him fight. We'll win." But the detective's expressions revealed a darker concern. "There's more," Monroe said. "He's trying to get media attention." My heart rate spiked instantly. Media attention meant publicity. Publicity meant exposure. Exposure meant Derek could twist the narrative, make himself the victim, and cast me, his almost dead wife, as confused, manipulated, unstable. And with me stuck in this bed, unable to speak, unable to defend myself, that lie could spread like wildfire. Avery immediately interjected. "What do we do to stop him?" Monroe exhaled slowly. "We can't stop him from talking to the press, but we can strengthen our case. We need more evidence, more proof of intent, more proof the accident wasn't an accident. Proof. Proof of him tampering with my car, proof of his whispered plans, proof he wanted me dead, proof I had heard every syllable." I blinked once. Yes, they needed everything. The detective spent hours with me that day. Avery held my hand as I spelled out every detail: how many times Derek visited me, what he whispered, what he touched, the night he tried to tamper with the ventilator, the inflection of his voice, the exact phrasing of "end her life support today." Every letter was a blade cutting open wounds I wasn't ready to reopen, but I spelled anyway, because my life depended on it. By mid-afternoon, the detectives had pages of documentation and enough confirmation to move forward aggressively. Harris stood and said, "We're preparing a warrant to search his personal devices, his car, his home, and his office." Avery's jaw clenched. "He won't get away with any of it." But her voice held a tremor. Not fear rage. After the detectives left, the room felt darker than usual. The blinds barely let in light. The hum of machines felt louder. Avery sat down heavily. "Gabrielle," she whispered, "you're doing everything right. I know you're exhausted, but we're getting closer." She rested her head at the edge of the bed. "I'm not letting him take anything else from you." Evening crept in, slow and tense. The hallway noise faded, replaced by murmurs from security outside my door. At sunset, a quiet knock came at the doorway. Not security, not a doctor, not a nurse. A woman stepped inside, the hospital social worker assigned to my case, Claire Bennett. Her expression was soft but serious. She pulled up a chair. "Gabrielle," she said gently, "I need to talk to you about something important." Avery straightened beside me, alert. Claire continued, "Your husband has filed an emergency petition claiming that he is being wrongly kept from you. He's arguing that the nurses and the police are influencing your responses." My stomach twisted. "Of course he was," Claire continued carefully. "He's requesting to see you, supervised, for 5 minutes." Avery sat up sharply. "Absolutely not." She turned to Claire. "That man tried to kill her," Claire sighed. "The court hasn't approved the visit, but the request forces us to respond." She looked at me. "If you don't want to see him, we will fight this. But we need a clear answer from you." My chest tightened. The idea of seeing him again made my blood run cold, but something inside me stirred anger, defiance, strength. Derek wanted access because he wanted to control the narrative. He wanted to intimidate me. He wanted to make me doubt myself, doubt what I heard, doubt the truth. But what if I could use that against him? Avery leaned in. "Gabrielle, you don't have to do anything. You owe him nothing." I blinked once, slow, steady. "No, I wasn't doing this to see him. I was doing this to expose him." Again, Claire understood. "We'll deny the request," she said softly, "and we'll inform the judge that you refuse contact." Avery exhaled in relief. "Good." But then Claire added, "One more thing. The judge wants a verbal or physical indicator of your awareness within the next 72 hours. Something more than eye movement. Something unquestionable." Fear pulsed through me. My speech wasn't back. My body still barely moved, and 72 hours felt like 72 seconds. When Claire left, Avery dropped into the chair again, her fingers trembling. "We're going to get through this," she whispered fiercely. "I don't care what he files or what he tries. He isn't touching your medical decisions again, and we'll get you that indicator." Her voice was determined but worried. She knew how fragile my progress was. She knew the clock was ticking. Night fell, but sleep didn't come. My body felt like a battlefield. My mind replayed every moment of the last 2 weeks. The whispers, the plans, the lies, the machines keeping me alive. Derek trying to disconnect them. The taser crackling. Security tackling him, his voice screaming my name as if he owned it. But under all of that chaos, something new flickered inside me. Power, not physical power. Not the ability to move or fight or shout, but the power of truth and the power of the people who believed me. Avery returned after checking on another patient. She pulled her chair close, rested her arm on the bed, and whispered, "Tomorrow, we start therapy to get you moving again. Even a finger twitch will be enough to destroy his claims. You're going to beat him, Gabrielle. I know you will." Her confidence warmed me. I blinked once. Yes, I will. As the machines hummed, as the room dimmed, as the last traces of daylight vanished, one thought echoed through me with absolute clarity. He tried to silence me, but I am not done speaking. Not even close. The next 72 hours became a countdown, a race between my failing strength and Derek's desperation to rewrite the truth. Avery barely slept. She stayed beside me for every therapy session, every evaluation, every painful attempt to wake muscles that had been silent for weeks. The physical therapist, a steady, soft-spoken woman named Harper, began the session by placing a small foam cube in my right hand. "Gabrielle," she said slowly, "all I need today is one thing. I need you to try to close your fingers. Even a millimeter counts. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen." Avery hovered near my shoulder, eyes fixed on my hand, as if willing it to move with sheer force of belief. My hand felt like stone, like it belonged to someone else, like the idea of moving it was ridiculous. But Harper leaned close. "Don't think muscle," she whispered. "Think memory. Think of every time you held a pen, a coffee mug, your steering wheel. Your body remembers. Let it remember." My body remembered pain. It remembered fear. It remembered Derek's voice whispering death in my ear while I lay helpless. I thought of that night, his hand on the ventilator tube, his whisper, "End her life support today." Rage flared through me, hot, electric, alive. My fingers twitched. Avery gasped. Harper froze. "Again," she said quickly, eyes wide. "Gabrielle, do it again." I pushed every ounce of myself into that hand. My index finger curled not fully, not smoothly, but undeniably. Harper slapped her clipboard. "We have it. We have the movement." Avery's hands flew to her face, tears pouring instantly. "You did it. Gabrielle, you did it." Harper documented every inch of motion with photos, time-stamped notes, muscle response readings, everything. It was enough. Enough to destroy Derek's claim. Enough to prove consciousness beyond doubt. Enough to protect my medical rights permanently. By evening, the evidence had been submitted to the judge. The ruling came in just after 9 p.m. Derek's petition was denied, permanently. He would never again have legal control over any part of my life. Avery read the order out loud with shaking hands. "By the authority of the state," she whispered, voice breaking, "all medical, legal, and personal decision-making rights for Gabrielle Matthews are hereby transferred away from her spouse, effective immediately." I blinked once, long and slow. Relief washed over me like a warm tide, but the universe wasn't done. An hour later, Detective Monroe arrived with news that knocked the breath out of the room. "We have a breakthrough," he said. "We found evidence in Derek's garage, tools with brake fluid residue, his internet search history, a deleted video of him practicing brake line cuts. We also obtained security footage of him entering your parking garage the night before your crash." My heart pounded so violently the machine beeped. Monroe stepped closer. "We now have physical proof he sabotaged your car," Avery whispered. "Thank God." But Monroe's face remained serious. "We confronted him with the evidence this afternoon." He paused, taking a slow breath. "He confessed." The room spun. "He confessed." Monroe continued. "He admitted he cut your brake line. He admitted he planned to stage your death as an accident. He admitted he intended to use your life insurance to pay off debts and start over with someone else. Someone else. Lauren." Monroe didn't say her name, but we all knew. Avery shook her head, disgust and fury filling her eyes. "He thought she was disposable," she muttered, "just like he thought Gabrielle was disposable." Monroe lowered his voice. We have enough to move forward with full charges of attempted first-degree murder. Attempted first-degree murder. The words felt surreal, heavy, final. A part of me wanted to cry, scream, collapse under the weight of it all, but another part of me rose higher than fear could reach. I survived a man who tried to erase me, and now the world finally saw him for who he was. Over the next several weeks, I stayed in recovery, progressing from finger movement to arm movement to faint vocal sounds that Harper celebrated like miracles. Avery visited every day after her shift. The detectives kept me updated. The case against Derek strengthened with each piece of evidence. Lauren fled the state. Derek's employer fired him. His family released a public statement condemning his actions. The world he tried to build on my grave collapsed around him. 6 months later, I attended his trial, not physically strong enough to walk, but strong enough to sit in the courtroom, awake, aware, alive. Derek wouldn't look at me, not once. The recording of him whispering at my bedside was played for the jury. His confession, the brake line evidence, the ventilator interference, every cold detail. When the verdict came, it was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Attempted first-degree murder, attempted medical interference, reckless endangerment, fraud. He was sentenced to life in prison, no parole for 30 years. Avery sat beside me, squeezing my hand through the entire sentencing. When the judge read the final ruling, she whispered, "It's over." But it wasn't over. Not really. It was a beginning. A new one. A year after the crash, I walked slowly, trembling, but upright across the porch of my new home. The sun was warm. The air smelled like possibility. Avery sat behind the camera, smiling through tears, filming as I began telling my story to the world. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. My voice was still soft, still strained, but it was mine. My husband tried to end my life, I said into the lens. But I'm still here. Avery wiped her eyes. "Say it," she whispered. I looked straight into the camera. Strong, steady, unbroken. And I'm not done fighting. That was the truth. The truest thing I had ever said. I was alive, I was free, and no one would ever silence me again.